everybody, and as of course you're watching this video in the evening, and that is good evening, and you are watching Time Travel TV, and today we're going to be talking about the worst Olympics ever. And you may be thinking, oh, it's the Tokyo Olympics. They had it in 1940 and it was cancelled because of World War II, and they had it in 2020 and it was postponed because of coronavirus. Well, you're wrong. It is the 1904 St. Louis Olympics. Now, the first thing that went wrong with this Olympics was the fact that very few countries could get there because it was in inland America, and we have to remember that at this point the Olympics was a more amateur affair. It wasn't really for professional athletes like we know today. So very few countries can get there. Only 12 countries actually participated. Not only that, although there were 651 athletes, 526 of them were Americans, so they kind of topped the medal table. Anyway, so what happened was the most terribly organised event in the whole Olympics was by far the marathon. Now, it happened on one sunny August afternoon. I say sunny, it was so hot, it was 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and I don't know what that is in Celsius, but that's quite hot. So, they failed to put many water stations on. They only put them on mile 6 and mile 12, which wasn't really enough. The idea was you started in the stadium, you circle the stadium 5 times, off into St. Louis, and then back again at the end. So, that sounds alright, doesn't it? Right? Wrong. Well, what happened was they failed to close the road. Therefore, runners had to try and dodge cars, wagons, trains, trolley buses, cars, and pedestrians. In fact, 12th place had a bit of a nasty problem with pedestrian, for they were chased a mile off the course by a wild dog. Coincidentally, 12th and 8th place in the final one were the first Africans ever to participate in the Olympics from South Africa. They were there as part of the Boer War exhibition, which was touring at that particular moment in time. They joined on a whim, by the way, and they did quite well, considering 12th place was chased off the course by a dog. Anyway, so the person, funny enough, someone almost died in the race. It was terrible. William Garcia was found unconscious in a ditch, and he was rushed to hospital. One of the favourites, a chap called Lorz, had pulled out halfway through the race, so he decided to get into a car and drive back to the stadium. Anyway, so by the time he got out the car, he felt a bit better, so he ran into the stadium, and all the crowd started to cheer, as if he had just won. And he thought, oh, I got a good thing going here, hooray! And he started to run across the finish line, and he was hailed the winner, even though he'd driven. Anyway, the judges soon realised he'd driven because people had seen him, and they didn't find it very funny, and they gave him a life ban on competitive running. Except, thankfully for him, they lifted that a year later after he did an official apology. Second place, or should I rather say first place, was a chap called Hicks, who was physically carried across the finish line, which wasn't against the rules back then. He was carried across because he was fed strychnine along the route by his coach. Brilliant coach. I don't know why they don't have more coaches like that today. Now, second and third place physically staggered across the line, although fourth place glided across the line. He was a Cuban called Felix, and he was a postman who self-funded his way to the Olympics, although he lost all his money in a game of dice, so he had to hitchhike his way to St. Louis. When he got there, he spent his time with some American weightlifters. He turned up for the marathon wearing woolly trousers and a long-sleeve shirt and boots, which is not really the correct attire you wear for a marathon, I understand. So what happened was an American discus thrower managed to make them more tracksuity-like with a pair of scissors by cutting them shorter. He would have come first, this Cuban chap, if he didn't stop to talk to people along the way. He also stopped to steal some peaches, and he stopped to pick some apples. Although he was fully revitalised when he crossed the line, he was absolutely fresh as a daisy, unlike the others. We've already talked about 8th and 12th place, being chased off the course by a wild dog, which is a bit weird. And as you can see, this was by far the worst Olympics ever. Absolutely terrible. Thankfully, it got a little bit more professional in 1908. Well, I say it got more professional in 1908. It didn't really. It stayed the same. I mean, we didn't have such a fiasco with the marathon, but it was still quite an amateur event. In 1912, Baron Pierre de Coubertin, who founded the modern Olympics, he won a gold medal for literature. And town planning was an Olympic sport until 1948. Poodle clipping was another Olympic sport, along with sculpting. I know. So, we already said that the USA topped the medal table, but this is by how much? The United States of America won 239 medals. In second place on the medal table was Germany, with 13, and in third place was Cuba, with 9. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe to Time Travel TV, and I'll see you next time. Cheerio.